Alexander Hamilton. Everyone in America has seen Alexander Hamilton's face hit on the $10 bill. It's a handsome portrait. His process calm, and it gave no hint of unbelievable hardship he suffered as exiled, or the terrible odds he once faced, often as a boy on a faraway island. He would later thrive and succeed at becoming a father, and not just a father of 8 children. He also became a founder father of a nation. He belonged to a handful of children. Men have found a father who, by their own inherited efforts, brought forth a nation of our nation, the United States of America. Without Hamilton among them, the United States would probably not have become what it is today, the most powerful nation on earth, the land of the free and home of the brave. Alexander Hamilton was born on January 11, 1757, in Charlestown, the capital of the island of Navarre in the British West Indies, and the Caribbean Sea. Almost 2,000 miles of blue ocean separate Navarre from Hamilton Fuchs' home in New York City. Navarre is a colorful place with dramatic scenes of beauty, sprawl, rural sandy beaches, and turquoise ocean water sparkling in the sun. People nowadays go there for vacations, but back in the days of Hamilton youth, it was not as peaceful as it is today, though it was just as colorful. It was also wild, though. There were scary, even evil things, though, woven into the fabric of everyday life. Power ship carrying contraband motor ships rolled in circle from the island plantations where black slaves toiled on a monstrous Caribbean sun. Stars, dress raiders, and gentlemen walking along, rugged criminals exiled from the countries. If we step off a ship back then, the sights, the smells, the sounds would hit you all at once. The square of the harbor with its hustle and bustle, the serene top of the near peak mountain overswelled in crowds, food windows, fancy shops, inns, storehouses, workshops, and taverns. Then there were also the slave markets, where Huber beans were bought and sold like cattle in plain sight. One Alexander saw it all, and he never forgot what he saw. It all shaped who he would become. Hamilton's mother raised her wife on the island of Nair because she had run away from her home and the nearby island of Sex. She did it to escape a miserable marriage to a cruel man who refused to grant her divorce. On Nair, she met Alexander's father, James Hamilton, a son of a noble Scottish family. They would have 2 children, James and Alexander. When Alexander was 8 years old, his father abandoned his family, never to return. It was a terrible blow. The responsibility to raise the two boys now fell on Rachel Soaks. But Rachel was a tough woman, and she was not about to despair. She returned to the island of St. Croix, where she rented a 2-story house. She converted the ground floor into a grocery store, while she and the boys lived on the second floor. The shop did well enough to put food on the table. With the money Rachel managed to put aside, she bought a stack of 34 books about free history and politics. In those days, such books were rare. Few people owned any books at all. When Rachel bought and under these books, she probably could have guessed that she was changing the course of history. When Hampton Reed ignited a great passion in his heart, he began to dream about faraway places where great events were taking place, and he wanted to take part in them. But then came the greatest blow of all, a blow that seemed to put an end to all of his hopes and all of his dreams. Both Alexander and his mother fell ill with low fever, and though Alexander recovered, his mother never did. There was nothing doctors could do, having been deserted by their father. Alexander and his brother James now lost their mother too. Alexander was just 11 years old. But out of this darkness, there is often boy would raise wise to one day take part in the founding of a nation, in a place he had never been to, almost 2,000 miles away. In the meantime, he had a steady job. He was a cook for the big man and company. Big man cooked to import every conceivable merchandise that the inhabitants of the island might need, from corn to timber, from cider to mules, and exported what the island had to offer: sugar, molasses, and rum. Hampton wanted to keep track of it all. He had great responsibility for a one teen. He was very self-confident. He calculated prices and ships routes, planned deliveries, and arranged storage. Sometimes he would even scold ship captains. Imagine that. And one boy dressing down a tough of a dog who commands a bunch of rowdy souls every day and may even have to deal with real pirates. Being a cook was boring to one Hampton. He felt stuck behind a desk far away from the exciting things that were happening in the world, but he could think of no way out. He couldn't save enough money to leave the island, and there was no one anywhere else in the world who could care for him. But there was a way out to Hampton. The night Max had read the books he read. These books offer him more than a window into the wider world. He offered him a door. 2 weeks to step out into it. By reading all these short hours, he sharpened his mind and his talent for words, and words would prove to be Hampton's most important tools and his sharpest weapons too, when he tried his hand at writing elegant chains for him, and it all started with a storm. On the night of August 31, 1772, terrible hurricane struck the island. It tore roofs from houses. It uprooted trees. It picked up carriages and furnaces and tossed them around the island like pages tore from a book. Huge forest waves washed over the harbor. The noise was deafening. One Alexander was so moved that he wrote an essay about it. It turned out to be a very powerful piece of writing, so much so that a Presbyterian minister named Hugh Knox decided to publish it in a local newspaper. The storm, Hamilton wrote, remind us of how fragile and small we are. In fact, we are helpless as worms when compared to the force of nature. Well, now a worm, he wrote, is all they boast folks to and what is become of thine England and self-sufficing, and the was he wrote a lesson to be won from all of this. No praise and adore thy God. Knox was so confident in Hampton's talent that he went far beyond publishing his essay. He arranged a scholarship for him to study in the colonies of North America. Here finally was Hampton taken off the island, and he did enough work back. The voyage to America to almost ended a tragic fate. It seemed was not done taxing this wrong man in the middle of the ocean. The ship caught foul trap between fire and water. Sailors scrambled to bring up the sea water in buckets to put out the fire. They found succeeded and half-burned the ship. Just barely completed the 3-week journey from West India to Boston, Massachusetts. This was where Hampton first set foot on American soil. He did not plan to stay in Boston very long. He headed to New York City, where he could enroll as a student in King's College, now known as Cambridge University. By that time, the events that would lead to the Revolutionary War were well underway. For decades, the colonists had been left to fend for themselves in wars with Native Americans in the struggle to tame the wilderness, in out their own living, and in keeping war and order in their towns. England, the mother country, helped them with nothing. It seemed like it had forgotten all about them. But then, when the British government needed money, it suddenly remembered colonies and imposed a tax. The first British attempt at this in 1765 was called the Stamp Act. Many colonists thought this was unjust and refused to pay it. Why, they asked, should they pay a tax to a government that does not serve them, and in which they are not representative? The struggle was no tax nation was represented. At first, Hampton was not sure about how the colonists should respond, but then came the Boston Tea Party, which changed his mind. Of course, the Boston Tea Party was not really a party. It was a protest against the British tax on the tea. The tax was clearly not fair because colonists merchants had to pay it. Well, British merchants did not. So when British ships brought the tax-free tea to Boston, the colonists decided to make the Imperial clear. On the night of December 16th, 1770, they organized a raid on these ships. Dressed up as Native Americans, the colonists struck into Boston Harbor, climbed onto the decks of British ships, and threw hundreds of chests full of tea into the water. The fish around the harbor must have been very much surprised to see the finest of swimming in tea. When Hampton knew about the thing, he knew in his heart it was right, and it became passionate American patriot. First, he penned a powerful pamphlet in support of the right of the colonists. These words, he said, are written as with a sunbeam, the whole volume of Fouding nature by the hand of the divinity itself, and can now be eased or obscured by mortal power. Words like these aroused the patriot spirit in the colonists, but more eloquent the colonists became, more determined were the British to crush the rebellion, and so they sent 800 soldiers to march out of Boston and confirmed weapons the patriots had in the town of Concord. On the way there, in a nearby town called Lexington, the British force was met with angry resistance by armed colonists. These were the famous Minutemen named so because they were said to be ready in a minute's notice in the skirmish. Then so 8 colonists were shot. 2 more were later killed and conquered. This was a fateful moment. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote the first shot followed by the colonists had conquered as the shot heard around the world. The Revolutionary War had begun. Hampton proceeded to write pages and pages in support of the colonists' cause, but once the battle began, he was not content to serve of his adopted country by wielding only a pen. He wanted to wield the sword too, as was his custom. He foresaw that about to studying the issue at hand, he devoted books about weapons, battles, and military strategy. He also joined a New York volunteer military and began drilling secretly before classes with fellow students in the cemetery near King's College. The president of King's College, where Hampton was studying, Dr. Miles Cooper, was not happy about the colonists' rebellion. When an angry crowd of patriots heard about his rules, they headed to Cooper's residence. Hampton, who shared a room with a friend right next to Cooper's apartment, got wind of the approaching crowd and drew his opinions were closer to those of the crowd than to Cooper's. He felt believed that others have the right to hold different opinions. Of course, everyone would defend the right to voice their own opinion, but the true champion of freedom also defend the right of others who disagree with them. This is exactly what Hampton did. He dashed onto the front porch of the college president home and drove a full speaks, hunting a man for his opinions. Hampton told the crowd would only disagree and enjoy Gore's cause of liberty. Hampton knew that he couldn't stop a whole rowdy mob all by himself, but he could start them. He started them. He did derail them just as long enough to let this cause a perfect jump out of a back window and escape unseen to safety. Soon Hampton was not content to serve in military. He believed he could do much more for the rifles, so he recruited 60 men and formed a territory company. He drew his men and increased till they become one of the best disciplined units of the whole colony army. They soon saw the coast with British warships started sailing past Manhattan and bombing with heavy cannon. Hampton stationed his unit on the shore, dragged in the wine, British wine of fire, and let his cannon do the answering. But the colonists were greatly outnumbered, and when redcoats, British forces, poured into the city, General George Washington ordered a night retreat before his army could be surrounded and trapped in New York. This was a very wise move. The Confederate army could have lost the war then and there had they not escaped at the last moment. Washington then regrouped his forces and mounted a successful attack in Trenton and Princeton in New Jersey. In the Battle of Princeton, Hamilton is wounded. These guns themselves when British forces in Twix in South in one of the university's hall. Hampton ordered cannon fire on the building. It is said that one of the shells broke into the shop and hit a painting of the British King George III. Whether or not this had anything to do with the British surrender, we will probably never know. But we do know that 194 British soldiers laid down their arms and walked out of the building, surrendering peacefully to Captain Hamilton Winnett. Soon word reached George Washington about the exploit of this dashing one commander, so he sent for Hamilton and offered him a post as his personal aide at headquarters. Thus he began one of the most important parts of American history. George Washington was tall, imposing, was a man of few words. He towered over Hamilton, his sword one must aid, but they complement each other. Washington was a widower like a father to this talented young man who grew up fatherless, and Hamilton was a widower like a son to the great general, who never had any children of his own. Together they suffer the bitterness taste of defeat, and together they savor the sweet taste of victory. Hamilton served as Washington's right hand, riding with the general in battle, writing his orders and helping him oversee the Confederate army. They oversaw both big decisions and small troop movements to their order uniforms. But the most important, they both saw firsthand what the colonists' greatest problem was: the lack of unity. The command forces belonged to the 13 different colonies instead of one united national army made it close to impossible to conduct the war. But the American colony offensive prevailed after 8 long wars. They defeated the British and gained independence. The British had a bigger, more perfect army. The colonists had a stronger will. So on September the 3rd, 1783, both parties signed the Treaty of Paris, which ended the war and established peace. Hamilton returned to Sherwin wife in New York. He had missed his family so much. He and his wife would go on to have 8 children. And if that were not enough, they also adopted an orphan girl named Fanny and raised her as their own. And John Hamilton never forgot his own childhood, and though he seldom talked about it, he knew all too well what with the Fanny must be going through. He saw her with all the wealth and attention a child could wish for. She would never again feel alone as he had after the death of his own mother. He also never forgot the slave markets he had seen as a child. America, he believed, should not allow the barbarian practice, and so he helped to found the New York Men's Mission Society and the slavery organization. Hampton served as a delegate of state of New York to Congress, and so once again he experienced firsthand the problem he and Watson had felt all through the war. There was no unity. Congress was a place where delegate English, Britain, and all good, but they had no power to decide important things and make the states obey them. It was more like a debate club than a government. The colonies had become like 13 independent states, but each one was too smart to protect its own interests, and all were too stubborn to cooperate with one another. This strange loose arrangement was called the Arctic Fact. Hampton's dream of making America powerful, and he understood full well that in order to achieve that, the colonies must first unite and form one nation from with one federal government. Generally, people came to see Hampton was right. Thomas Johnson and James Madison, John Hampton, and other politicians in the Constitution Conference. George Washington agreed to preside over the meeting himself. It was time to make a serious change. After much deliberation, the founder of our nation worked out a form of government, the likes of which the world had never seen before. There would be no king and no royal family. Power would be divided between the president, Congress, and the courts. Between the federal government and the states, the government created by the Constitution is like a hooked clock with many gears and levers. All the parts work together to make sure no single part becomes too powerful. Our Constitution is a work of true genius, and it has kept Americans free from ever since. As long as we protect it with, it will protect us. George Washington was elected first president of newly created United States of America. What would be more natural for Washington than to call on his trusted young partner, Alexander Hampton, to serve by his side as Secretary of the Treasury. It was a job tailor-made for Hampton. From his early teens as a cook for Brickman of Cocoa Company, Hampton was fascinated by a company knowledge, buying, selling, trading, manufacturing, shipping, money, banks, prices, and taxes. He achieved many things before he left office in 1795. He put the nation finances in order and funded a national bank. He designed means for collecting taxes and arranged for the government to pay what the states still owe the soldiers for the service in the Revolutionary War, and made sure the nation coast would succeed by setting up the coast White House and creating fleet of ships patrol offshore waters. All this made America a stronger and more wonderful nation. Hamilton went down with have even more to strengthen the fruitful bonds of the new nation, but tragically his wife was cut short by a duel. Hampton began when Aaron Burr, President Thomas Jefferson's vice president, heard rumors that Hampton said he was displeased. Burr challenged Hampton to a duel. The two men could have found a way to iron things out, but Burr, who was a shady person, saw Hampton as an arch rival, was determined to go to the duel. Hampton was a proud man and would never have let people brand him a coward, so he accepted the challenge. On the morning of July 11, 1804, the two men met in Wickham, New Jersey, on the bank of Hudson River across from Manhattan. Each had 1/16. They were handicapped and water pictures. Then 1/16 asked if they were ready. When they were, he said the word present, which meant that they could now shoot. Hampton had committed before the duel to wave his first attempt and to shoot to the side so to not hit Burr. This he hoped would open the door for a peaceful conclusion to the disagreement, but it was not to be. Hampton then shot far to the side, but Burr was not as kind. He hit Hampton in the abdomen above his right hip. It was a fatal wound. Hampton knew it. "I'm a dead man," he said to his assistant. He was evacuated by boat back home to Manhattan, but there was nothing to be done. Hampton died at 2 p.m. on the next day. He was only 47 years old. In the first wars of the United States, there were two complete versions of the nation fixture. Thomas Jefferson believed that the States must remain a nation of farmers because he thought covering the soil make people's lives simple and honest, and he believed that would ensure they would be good citizens. Hampton, on the other hand, envisioned manufacturing, banking, and enterprise spirit. He foresaw a democratic society and full of energy and ideas for ever improving, inventing, and voting. Had Jefferson envisioned prevailed, the wars might have remained a more pastoral country where the pace of life was slower, the towns small, and change in habits few and far between. It would probably have remained on the margin of the world stakes. Rocky Hampton vision won the day, which is why United States Hampton believed we well adopted country become the great, dynamic, powerful nation that it is. We were forever be thankful to this man and offering child from faraway island who came to America not just to discover, but also to create, to help in the founding of a nation that would be able to face any challenge so long as it remained firm and it breathed God, liberty, and unity. And John Hampton would have been proud to discover that the America he helped create is to this day a beacon of freedom and the greatest protector of liberty in the whole history of humankind. He worked 51 of 85 Veritas papers. He was only 20 years old when he was appointed as General. Joyce was the personal aide at the headquarters of the Continental Army. Hampton was incredible versatile and dexterous. He completed 3-year programming while doing in law studies in only 9 months. He liked to dress flexible, and when he could afford it, had his hair done by a barber every day. Hampton's eldest son was also killed in a duel. Hampton Heights is an area of home where Hampton once lived. His house, known as the Grand, is now a national lumber site.